Hi, it's John Wallace again with the dynamics of kingdom culture living. I want to talk today about just kind of an incident that happened recently, and that was a friend of mine received some prophetic words over himself and over the ministry that he was involved with. And I don't want to get into just the whole area of the gift of prophecy or the deliverance of prophecy. What I'd like to talk about today is the receiving of prophetic words. Let's say that you, like my friend, receive some words spoken through a person that are supposedly from God to you. What do you do with that? What do you do with that? Well, there's several kind of steps or things that go through my mind in the past when I've received these, and I just want to let you know about what those steps are, those different dynamics. Number one is I think through, is what's being said scriptural? Does it line up with what I know of God in the Bible and the ways of God in the Bible? Or at the very least, is it at least not anti-scriptural? Either scriptural or at least not anti-scriptural. Then the second thing that I look at is what kind of witness are these words bearing in my own person? In other words, when these words are spoken, could it be that they are really confirming something that God has already told me or shown me for myself? And just these words are just another stamp of approval from the Lord that, yes, you heard me correctly. Oftentimes, prophetic words are that as well. Another thing is that I always like to get mature feedback, perhaps from other people that were present when the words were given, or sometimes I will call a trusted friend I've walked with for a long time and tell them about the word and get their feedback as well. The next thing is just pray over those words. Ask the Lord about them. Ask Him about the specifics of them. Ask Him if any of the things that were spoken were symbolic or are they literal. Go through that whole procedure as well. Don't try to make prophetic words happen yourself. Don't try to make them happen. You get yourself in trouble with that. However, you can position yourself to prepare yourself for the fulfillment of those prophetic words. In other words, let me give you an example from my own life. In 1992, a man stood me up in a very large conference and said that God was giving me an apostolic ministry. Now, before you freak out about that, about the word apostolic, let me just tell you my understanding of that is exactly what I am doing right now, and that is I'm going around to different church leaders and nonprofit leaders, relationships that I have with young men, a few young women and their husbands, to encourage them to walk in the destiny that God's called them to give them some wisdom along the way, and to encourage them to be sent out ones into our culture. That's what the word apostle means. It means a sent one. And so this man stood me up, 1992, and said, "You're going to have an apostolic ministry." Well, look, I didn't go out the next day and print up a bunch of business cards that said John Wallace Apostle on it. I didn't do that. But what I did do is I continued to work on my character. I continued to just ingest the presence of God, to walk in the things of the Spirit, to study the Scripture more, to broaden my exposure to different kinds of ministries and to different people in ministry. So over the years, that's what happened. And then, 3.5, almost 4 years ago now, which then was 21 years after that prophecy, I stepped into what I believe is the fulfillment of that prophecy. But what did I do in the meantime? I was preparing myself. At the same time, I was asking God to heighten my spiritual senses so that if the opportunities came up to step more and more into the fulfillment of that prophecy, I would be ready. I would be ready. So those are just some of the things that I would say if you receive prophetic words. And let me just give you one final word on this real short segment here, and that is, don't be too quick to think you know what the fulfillment of a prophecy is to you. I cannot tell you how many times the Lord has used someone to speak words to me, and I immediately start in my mind thinking what that's going to look like, and it's been different when it really happens. So don't be too quick, but be prepared. Just take a prophetic word as not necessarily a guarantee, but an invitation to step into further the process that God has in making you into the fullness of who He's created you to be. Thanks very much.